Hi, everybody. Welcome to Rethink Life, our live stream. We are back and we have a fun episode today, a thoughtful episode today. But for those of you who haven't been around and this is new for you, we are sponsored by the Institute of Metaphysical Science, which was established in 1959 as Margaret Laird Foundation, researching, exploring, living, and teaching the science of being and the causal nature of consciousness. You can check out the website at scientificmetaphysics.org. All right, so here we are. And our subject today is pain necessary? And every incident, whatever named, has spiritual value as an aspect of self-realization, a demand to be. Truth makes a constant call upon itself for expression. And whatever you have the point of view about that expression is your point of view. It's always expressing. Yes, Betty? How would you say that?
I have no idea. You're catching me without any answer for that.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll keep going. You can think about that. So, who has not been at the point in the realization of true being where the symbolic language of pain and loss have been a more useful concept than the language of pleasure in identifying the idea joy is spiritual? The idea that joy is spiritual comes to view in the personal sense of things as the pains of that sense. These pains are informative and have served their purpose when enlightenment takes the place of ignorance. The answer to having fun all the time is giving up of personal sense, right? That's what trips us up. So how would you like to talk about this, Mom, as your intro? What do you have to say on any and all of those things I just said?
Well, you go faster than I do. um, when you're talking about language is symbolic, I just always think about spanking a child that steps into the street where he shouldn't be. It's always sourced by love. It always has value. And you grow in your experience the thing that has greatest value for you. So you can't mimic anybody else. You've got to stand on your own 2 feet.
Right. Yep. When I think about this whole pain, the whole pain thing, and who's not been at the point in the realization of true being where the symbolic language of pain and loss have been a more useful concept than the language of pleasure in identifying the idea joy is spiritual. And I have thought a lot about that, and it seems that what gets our attention is the pain, not the pleasure. What gets our attention is the pain.
Oh, yeah.
When everything's going along just fine, isn't this great? We can attribute cause in the picture. We're just going along. We're loving it. It's all great. But as soon as pain hits, it's like, wait a minute, what happened?
Yep.
And maybe that's what's meant by it's more useful.
Oh, yeah. And not only does it get your attention, but it hangs around and holds your attention to keep you on track.
Yeah. Yep. All right. So at any time you guys have any questions, just go ahead and enter them into the comments and we will take those up. And we would love to hear from you. If you're liking this conversation, give us a thumbs up or a heart and a like. We would love that as well. So just be sure to ask all your questions. We're here to answer them. So we're going to dive in. We're using personal concept. You're going to hear lots of quotes from personal concept and Margaret Laird. So
all of this is personal concept.
Right. So on page 15, Margaret Laird wrote, the clarity of your vision determines what you seem to be aware of. And in the what you seem to be aware of, I want to make Quote
What are
number
you
one.
reading, Kim?
Quote number one. The clarity of your vision. Margaret Laird.
Determines what you
Page
seem to be
15.
aware of.
The clarity of your vision determines what you seem to be aware of. That is what I said. Are you there?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Can you not hear
All
me?
right. I can hear you. I think you're frozen, so not sure. Anyways, we'll keep going. So go ahead and say whatever. There you are. So, and when I look at this and I think, well, it's what you seem to be aware of is the seeming, all the stuff going on in your life is a point of view. So that would be what you seem to be aware of. Is that accurately stated?
Well, I was looking, maybe it'll get to that point in a minute, but the one of the sentences here says the answer to having fun all the time is the giving up of personal sense. Well, if you have a fond opinion of yourself or your belongings or your job or your whatever, you're hooked with personal sense of yourself. So giving that up is not easy. And what it requires is that you get very clear on what does constitute your own being. It can't be this thing that you see in the mirror. This is a view of the reality present calling itself Betty. But it's just a view. So it says that I consciously am, but doesn't give you any other information. So in considering, in fact, a lot of the statements that Ms. Zeddy has made in the textbook and some of them that Margaret has made and some that she's corrected too. But when you are considering tackling any area of your life, what you want to look at is what is actually there. See, one of the things that you learn about science, metaphysical science, is that you begin with the science. You begin with perfection. You begin with reality. And then you extrapolate out so that you can allow it to look however it looks without it touching you. See, when I recognize
And when you say without it,
Betty,
when you say that
without
when
what?
you say that without it touching, when you say without it touching you, does that mean it just doesn't impact you? Like you don't get hooked by it? Or would it just not even show up?
Yeah, well, the clarity of your vision determines your freedom to live it that way.
Okay.
What you seem to be aware of is the stuff you have to leave alone.
Mm-hmm.
And the spiritual facts you can identify and acknowledge are stating the truth of being, whether you understand it or not.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then we also have an additional quote. You see the flower because you think it. You do not think it because you see it.
Yep.
And I think that's an important distinction. It's, I'll believe it when I see it. And the truth is you'll see it when you believe it.
And you see everything you believe.
Got it. Yeah. Yeah. So be careful. Watch your believing.
Yeah. Yeah. The world I walk through is my believing.
Yeah.
It's actually my seeing telling me what I'm believing.
Yeah. Okay. So in that way, it's huge information.
Yep.
On the path of discovering.
Yep.
All right. So then we move on to Science and Health by Mary Baker Eddy on 285, starting on line 7. She wrote, "What then is the material personality which suffers, sins, and dies? It's not man, the image and likeness of God. So what is it?
Can you answer that?
It's my belief that there's anything over there outside of who I am.
Yeah. That'll do it.
How would you say it?
It's your point of view.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So the point of view is the material personality.
The point of view is your language world, your whole language world.
Okay.
And it's unique to you.
Right.
You may think you share it, but that you make that up as you go along.
Right. Right. Okay. Awesome. Again, for those of you who've just joined us, if you're liking this conversation, give us a thumbs up or a heart. You can also enter any questions into the comments. We would love to have any questions if this isn't clear as we go on here, so we can go ahead and engage with those questions too. So feel free to do that. All right. And then Mary Baker Eddy, also on page 285 on 16 and 17, says the belief that a material body is man is a false conception of man. So to believe that that which sits in a chair is your concept of man is a false conception of man. Is that?
That's right. I
That
was
which
told
sits in
early
a chair.
on, that which sits in a chair can't think.
Yeah. Right. Okay. And then in your book, Mine is the Athlete, on page 125, you say, when identity is consciously acknowledged as the presence of being, life becomes a journey of self-discovering.
Yep.
You want to say a little more about that?
Yeah. When you're saying, who am I? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So when that identity is consciously acknowledged, and accurately, I should say, as the presence of being. And just think about that. When identity is consciously acknowledged as the presence of being, life becomes a journey of self-discovering.
Yeah.
Because being is one event, one divine event, however you want to say it.
Right.
It is not multiple. So I live it the only way that it can be lived in my point of view, so to speak.
Right. Yep.
Who I'm being right now. And that's actually all that's going on, so far as I'm concerned. Because if I'm not aware and including, it doesn't exist.
Yep.
Because I'm the world I walk through, and it can only have what I can provide. So when you think about it, what they're getting to here is the clarity that all being is one divine event. And that's all there is to you.
Okay. All right. Very good.
See,
Now,
awareness is the being that constitutes man. The God idea, self-aware, shows up as an awareness. And that's called man.
yeah. All right. And on page 19 in Personal Concept, it does. It sounds really simple. And then there's a living it.
Yeah, because we forget that what we're seeing is a perception and not a fact.
Right.
The facts are not visible. And yet without them, there is no visibility.
Right.
So all I ever see is my best view of the fact present. And something present is what has me know that something is there. What it is, I may be a long time getting to. But
Right.
everything that is. So you'll get to it.
Right.
Whatever isn't. And you don't have to be bothered with it.
Right. So
it's a bunch of
let
double
me ask
talk,
you
but
this.
it all adds up.
Well, what you said was whatever isn't, you don't need to be bothered by it. And I want to follow that up and say, okay, so if
You're
I am,
fading out.
if I,
Say
yeah,
it
if
again.
yeah. So what I want to say is this: if I experience pain or
I'm
hurt
not hearing you.
or a bad situation, can you hear me at all?
Yes, I heard you say a bad situation.
So if I'm experiencing pain or hurt or a bad situation in the circumstances of life, then basically that's what isn't, and I don't need to be concerned with it. Is that what you're saying? Or because
what
it's
you
my
want to
point
be
of
concerned
view,
with is what's actually present. You want to acknowledge the spiritual fact, so you want to acknowledge what's actually present, whether you see it or
Right.
not.
Right, but not attribute cause to the pain or the whatever that's in the picture.
Well, most of the time we are consumed by what's in the picture.
Exactly.
But it is the discernment of spiritual facts that moves you beyond the picture. So when I look at a picture and it's upsetting or painful or unwanted or uncomfortable or any of those things, then I know that something is showing up that I have not made room for as my own. Something that I don't want, something I've denied or avoided or ignored. That's happening here, Kim.
Yeah, we've got funky internet, and I apologize to everybody who's having trouble hearing some
You're
of
not
this.
showing up in the picture.
Yeah, we're having some challenges with the internet. It's going in and out. I apologize. So we'll see how it comes out in the end when we watch the video. So hopefully I'll hang in there and pay attention and and get what we're saying.
Okay.
All right. So on page 19, Margaret Laird wrote, reality unfolding as your conscious sense is what you see.
Yeah, we're always seeing reality, but we need to have the intelligence to recognize that the way we see it is not the way it is.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
The
And
note
the
says
reality
of all you
all. Go ahead.
I started to read it. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. It's fine.
The reality of all you think you see on the stage, your language view, you are experiencing as soul, as idea, as intelligence, understanding.
Right. So the as soul is the reality present, no matter the look, no matter the picture.
In one of my copies of the personal concept and writing all this up, I wrote, what did I write? Oh dear. Well, anyway, that isn't important, I guess. But I write it up and I see in what I'm writing up what I'm saying to myself. And then I have to remember that that is exactly what's going on and learn to allow the way it looks to just be that, oh, that's the way you look. Okay. and leave it alone. Because when you do, if it is reality present, it will expand, as your understanding. If it's not reality present, it will fall without any attention to it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
right.
Anyway.
Very good. All right. And in Science and Health on page 218, starting at line 32, Mary Baker Eddy wrote, when we wake to the truth of being, all disease, pain,
weakness, weariness, sorrow, sin, death will be unknown, and the mortal dream will forever cease. We didn't have you see.
All right. Sorry
I finished it.
Okay. Yeah, it went away. Sorry, guys. Our internet sucks today.
Go ahead with Albie.
All right. And then in Mind is the Athlete on page 125, you wrote, Betty, if I am taking offense or I am upset or out of sorts with my friend, child, husband, myself, it indicates an unwillingness to acknowledge the presence that has that very situation show up.
Yep.
And that speaks directly to what we've said on so many of these live streams about willingness and being willing, being curious, having that quest of self-discovery that says, is that what I'm believing? Really? And start to play with it right there in the unwillingness. Shift it so you can be free. So the whole picture can free up and your world can be free.
And your attention to it is what frees you. There isn't anything to do.
Right. I'm reminded of the same thing I've said many times on these live streams, and that is, if you want to go as far east as you can go, you can start walking east, and there's always more east to go until you turn around and you're as far east as you can ever get.
All at the same time.
Exactly. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. On page 19 of Personal Concept, Margaret Laird wrote, what is going on in the belief of things, in the drama you are witnessing, is spirit functioning as awareness or soul, you, demonstrating that the personal concept is not man.
Mm-hmm. And when that demonstrating is occurring, when that freedom is showing up, when things begin to flow, that is reality present without the personal concept intruding. You just allow it to be there. So that's the way that feels.
Right. And she goes on, or Mary, what's this one? This is from Mary Baker Eddy. A few immortal sentences breathing the omnipotence of divine justice have been potent to break despotic fetters. Love is the liberator.
Yep.
Say, break that down. Unpack that a little bit.
Well, she says that she writes, we read the one above it, what's going on in the belief of things. She says spirit functioning and so on. So then she says a few immortal sentences breathing the omnipotence of divine justice have been potent to break despotic fetters. So sometimes just what you're saying to yourself, if you're listening to it, if you're being present to what you're saying, will shift the whole thing. The science that you actually live shifts your human look.
Yeah. And on Science and Health on 219, line 14, Mary Baker Eddy also said, consciously living as science, we shall never affirm concerning the body what we do not wish to have manifested.
Yeah, and really take that to heart, because it's as you say. And I know that for me, that's been very hard when I've had something painful, to not have everything have to be riddled with pain. And it's really a challenge. The thing that gives you some freedom is when you can see that perfection is the source and condition of reality. And so perfection is what's going on. And how I see it doesn't change that. How I see it is just a language view I've got of the reality that's present, whole, perfect, complete right now.
Right.
So,
and then on
living as science, we don't want to affirm anything concerning our living, anything at all concerning our living that we do not want to have manifested. So you know, that covers a wide spectrum.
Sure.
You at least pause and give a thought to how much you want to describe in minute detail something going on.
Right. I mean, I just look at it, and I look at it from the standpoint of just all the things that get said socially.
Yep.
When you talk about this or that, and you know, your what hurts, you know, all the things that you talk about and that you travel in, that's just social conversation, seemingly benign.
Nothing's benign when you open your mouth.
Right. So it's so interesting to pay attention and to be conscious of what that is. And that's, you know, a reminder for myself. And then, of course, on 468, lines 9 and 10, Mary Baker Eddy wrote, all is infinite mind and its infinite manifestation, for God is all in all. Mm-hmm. And then you wrote on page 125 and 126, in Mind as the Athlete, if I'm aware of my own responsibility in the matter of relationships, I will not be upset with what it looks like.
Yep.
So how many times in relationships have I been upset by what the other person did or how they acted or whatever? But and then when I get with it, if I'm aware of my own responsibility in the matter, I'm not upset with what it looks like, because I am the world I walk through. That's called 100% responsible, requiring 0% of the picture.
Yep.
And that takes practice and discipline. Whatever
floats your boat.
In my world, that takes practice and discipline, and I'm committed to it. And it's interesting how things unfold.
This note at the end says, acknowledgement of the spiritual facts removes the penalty for mistakenly placing cause in the language picture.
Is that like getting absolution?
No, it's
well, it removes the penalty. That's what it says. I was just asking.
Well, the penalty is that's certainly demonstration then, because the penalty is all the misery that's going on.
Exactly. So acknowledgement of the spiritual facts removes the penalty for mistakenly placing cause in the language picture.
Yeah.
So you don't need to make yourself bad and wrong. You're just human. When all that occurs, it's just human.
So you don't make it bad and wrong. You just let it sit in the corner and pay no attention to it.
Right. There you go. All right. All right, y'all. If there's any questions, go ahead and enter them into the chat. If you've enjoyed this, we'd love a thumbs up or a heart,
Well, you
anything
won't
like
be here
that.
next week because I'm traveling.
And we will not be here next week, but we'll be here the week after. And that will be the second time we'll be here, and then we'll be off for a couple of weeks. This is the summer we're trying to get in because we know we've been gone, but plan on being here in 2 weeks. And then
So
we
the
will tell you
20
when the next one will be.
That's the 29th.
That's the 29th. The next one will be on the 29th. So mark your calendars, and we'll see you then at 5 p.m. Pacific and 7 p.m. Central. And until then, pay attention. Pay attention to what you're affirming. Pay attention to your seeing, and understand it's all the language of self-discovery, the only way you can see it. Okay, till next time.
Thank you, Kim.